Okay, so we've covered 3 of my 5 initial steps for dealing with anxiety and getting rid of anxiety, erasing it from life so anxiety does not exist. I can tell you wholeheartedly, even with this pandemic, I have no anxiety about it whatsoever. I've worked really hard to erase anxiety from my life, and it is possible. If you're serious about it, you make a conscious decision. That's what was in step 1. Make a conscious decision about changing and relieving yourself of anxiety, understanding what it is, and why we have anxiety. Number 2 was discerning from fact and from imagination that builds and helps snowball anxiety. And number 3 was catching it early on and having a plan in place and a practice to erase anxiety from our experience at the moment. Just changing our state right away with a breathing technique, with movement, with posture, and stopping anxiety in its tracks and changing our state to something else. Number 4, when we're a coach, or when you're taught in LP, you're taught about logical levels, which are levels of consciousness. One level of consciousness is our surroundings. And if we change our surroundings, it changes us in a little bit of a way. If we're in bad surroundings, we're kind of feel bad and we're not up to our best. If we improve our surroundings, we improve ourselves even more, just a little bit. The deeper and more profound these settings get, these levels become, when we change at the deeper levels, we change ourselves more deeply and create greater, healthier change. One of the highest levels is the level of identity. When you're a coach and you're helping somebody to create change in their experience, it can be very difficult to make change happen at the level of identity because people are very comfortable and spend a lot of time about who they are, who they say they are. But identity levels are really interesting because one day we can say, I'm a vegan, I'm an athlete, I'm a martial artist, I'm a musician, and then the next day, literally, I can go buy a steak, I can go hunting, I can break my guitar and never play it again, and I can decide that I would rather write a book than ever practice sports again, and I can call myself a hunter, meat eater, bacon lover, book writer, author, and it would still be as true on that day as the story I told about myself the day before, who was the vegan, athlete, musician, artist. So identity is very malleable. We can say anything about our identity and make it true because identity is up to us. Now, why is this important when it comes to anxiety? It's important because often I hear people say, I am anxious. I am overwhelmed. I am panicking. And these are statements that are called I am statements. Whenever we say I am anxious, it means that they're identifying as anxiety itself. And so step 4 is how you talk about anxiety. And it's really important about our speech of the subject of anxiety. Because as a person identifying as anxiety, you have no control over it. You're identifying I am anxious is the same as saying I am anxiety. And anxiety is an emotion and an event. It is not who you are. So it's very important to speak correctly about anxiety or any other issue that we have that's negative, whether it's depression or I always think about Alcoholics Anonymous, because every meeting, every person who speaks is reinforcing their identity as being an alcoholic, where it's a behavior, it is not an identity. And that's one of the big things as a coach that we deal with when we're talking to somebody who's addicted to anything is, if they identify as an addict, they're never going to get away from the thing they're addicted to. And when you're saying, I am anxious, it's a very powerful statement, because it's difficult to get away from when it's what you're saying you are. And I hope that that makes sense to people and they understand the level that a statement like that is getting into their psychology, their neuroscience. So instead of identifying as being anxious, we want to say things like, I experience anxiety sometimes. And the more you get your statements around anxiety being a small event or an emotion, then it becomes a really powerful tool to start getting anxiety erased from our experience. Saying, I experience anxiety when I'm tired, or I experience anxiety when situations happen, but the moment I think about them, it just stops. That starts disempowering anxiety. We're saying things like, I am anxious, really empowers it, and it becomes strong. It gives it a lot of power. It feeds it a lot of nutritious vitamins that keep it very powerful in our life. Saying, I experience anxiety once in a while, but I usually catch it really quickly early on and it just disappears. That completely disempowers anxiety. So be aware how you're speaking about anxiety. And this works for depression as well, or for anger, or for addiction. Be aware how you're speaking about it, because there's a lot of neuroscience behind it, a lot about our conditioning, and a lot about the way we create our reality. Be aware how you speak about it. Change the way that you speak about it. Listen how other people speak about things that are emotions or are parts of their identity, their I statements, their I am statements. And another way that we can deal with this as well is really describe anxiety in detail. Write it down is the best way to do this, to get the best understanding of how we speak about anxiety. What does your anxiety feel like? How does it act within you? Learn how it makes you feel in your body, how it makes you feel emotionally, how the thoughts are when you're having anxiety or experiencing anxiety, and write it down in great detail, because the better you know how you experience anxiety, the quicker you can catch it before it snowballs out of control, and you can begin to erase it from your lives. So that's step 4. Watch how you're talking about it, describe it, and begin to speak about it in low levels as just being a small event that you usually catch early on and isn't a big deal in your life anymore, even though it may have once been. All right, and I'll see you with the 5th step in my first 5 steps coming up in the next video. Everybody, be well, and I'll see you again really soon.